Hi, everybody. Coach Cindy and Coach Sandie from CL Performance Training here. We coach endurance athletes of all kinds, so runners, cyclists, triathletes. We build them training plans. We help them along the way to achieving some kind of goal, whether it's to do an Ironman, to do a marathon, to do an ultra marathon, or just to get more fit. So if you want any more information on that, you can go to clperformancetraining.com. Today, we wanted to come out and talk about a couple of things. One, what should we be doing this time of year? Assuming you're from where we're from, somewhere in Canada where we're in the winter season right now, and our race season is a ways away. What should we be doing right now? And how should we be looking to plan our upcoming season? So to start off, what should we be doing this time of year? Sandie, what do you think these athletes should be doing in December? Going into the holiday season, not quite yet into the year of our next season just yet.
Right. Well, I'm finding with a lot of athletes, we're having trouble staying on track with our program, the people that we are coaching. And then athletes who I'm just seeing out and about are going out and doing all kinds of different things, fun runs and things like that, which I think is okay at this point, at this time of year. There's a lot of pressure and we have to kind of acknowledge that and forgive ourselves if we're kind of off what we should be doing. However, that said, when we go too far off the rails, it takes a long time to get back on and find a regular routine, especially if we start to feel badly about slipping backwards. So staying with whatever we can at this point in time is really, really important, and along with forgiving yourself if you're not kind of staying with the program that you feel like you should be doing. And that really depends on what your goals are for next year. But I think across the board for every endurance athlete, it's important to work on your base fitness and your base strength at this point in time. So what does that involve, Cindy?
So I think that one thing I just want to add to that is, like what you said, back down on things, be a bit more forgiving, and also know that no one should be at their peak level of fitness for 12 months of the year. So it's good for you. It's good for your body. It's good for your mind to, you know what, if you gain a couple of pounds, that's great. If you don't eat perfectly or follow your training plan perfectly right now, that's perfect, because we need you to be motivated going into the new year. So keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So what should we be doing this time of year to build some strength and base fitness? Well, we're going to talk about multisport here, and we're going to talk about it as having 4 different disciplines, because to us, strength training is really important all year. What that strength training changes throughout the year, but doing some form of strength is your 4th discipline in triathlon or duathlon or adventure racing, whatever multisport events that you're doing. So how do we work on this? For cycling, for example, that would mean getting in some long zone 1, zone 2 type rides, working on some low cadence type workouts. So what you would do outdoors would be hill training. What you would be doing indoors would be, for example, 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute intervals at maybe slightly higher power at 55 to 65 RPM, sometimes in the saddle, sometimes out of the saddle, working on strength through those legs, strength through the hips. Doing intervals like that should feel like you're doing some squats, some lunges, some leg presses in the gym. You should feel some of that lactic acid buildup. You should feel those leg muscles getting a little bit tired. You should also feel more muscle fibers getting engaged and yourself becoming a little bit more efficient at cycling when you do this. Your long rides should not be that long. They should not be done, racing other people on Zwift right now. They should not be done sprinting and King of the Mountaining on Zwift right now. They should just be sitting there, put on a movie, get in some base miles, work at those lower efforts, lower heart rates. Now's the time to do that and not be pushing yourself and kind of knocking yourself out on those workouts. On the run, similar, working on strength with hills. So hills would be comparable to those low cadence intervals I was talking about on the bike. Some of those hill efforts might be 15, 30 seconds, higher efforts. Some of them might be 90 seconds, 2 minutes, even longer, going up an incline outdoors or on the treadmill. So working on strength through those legs and through those hips in a sport-specific way. In the pool, you also do strength. So you use your paddles, for example. You might not do sprints with the paddles, but you might wear your paddles for big, long 400, 600, 800 meter sets to work on building strength through those swimming muscles, which should be a lot of strength through your back, your upper back, your lats, working on engaging those, working on knowing how they should take part in your swim stroke and using them for a long time. When we race, we're not racing 100 meters in the swim. We're racing 750 or 1,000 or 1,500 or 3,800, right? So we need to know how to be strong, how to have proper engagement for a long endurance swim. So pulling, if your shoulders don't like paddles, the other thing is just use your pull buoy. It's going to make your arms work a little bit more, your shoulders work a little bit more, your back work a little bit more. That could be another way to work on strength, is doing more pull. The other thing that you want to focus on is improving your technique and your efficiency. So I did talk about how doing that low cadence stuff on the bike is going to help you become more efficient, learn to activate and engage a few more muscle fibers. How are we going to, do you have some other ideas, Sandie, on how we can improve technique and efficiency? Specifically, swimming is the one most people are going to think about here.
Yeah, well, I think that it's worth, if it's difficult to get to a pool, which some of us are finding it's harder to get more than an hour booked still, or just it takes so long to get there, is dryland swim training. There's a real benefit to being able to doing some of those, the band pulls, and also core work, because your core has to really support you and work so hard in the pool. Get that work in now. Well, if you can't get to the pool, it's quick and easy to do the band training, and it will pay off in the long run. Strength, but as well as stretching, because I think we forget often about opening up our pecs, and that's going to help us for all of our. If we're spending hours and hours on the bike, for example, in arrow position and just grinding away, we'll drop our head down, we'll just like this, and we're forgetting that we're not using our neck muscles to look up, and we're not getting our chest opened up for running, and that's a big thing to pay attention to at this point. So form, I guess, is an important one.
And we do have actually a swimming clinic, speaking of form, coming up soon in February 12th. We'll have an hour and a half of pool time in Toronto at Glendon College. On February 12th in the morning, we'll be having a bunch of athletes come. We'll be working on a few technical things, as well as getting in a swim workout. We'll take some videos of everybody. We'll go over those videos after the clinic. We'll take a look at them all and send some feedback. So if you are in the area of the GTA and would like to join us, send us an email, clperformancetraining@gmail.com, and we'll get you signed up for that. The cost is $50 plus HST per athlete. One thing I wanted to talk about with respect to swimming and technique is that it's important to know what you are good at and what you need help with, so that you can choose drills that help you work on your weakness. It doesn't make sense for you to go to the pool and swim drills all the time for 45 or 60 minutes when you might be doing drills that help you with something you're already good at. So make sure you know what your weakness is. Pick a couple of drills, do them for, a portion of your swim workout, but make sure that you're also working on your swimming and your swim fitness. So just make sure you're getting a little bit individual when it comes to that. If you have a coach who's remote, you can always send videos of your swim. Your coach can look at those, pick out what you need to work on. So even though things can be remote, it can also be, we've learned, especially in COVID, that there's lots of ways to send video, even do a live stream of your swim. That's something that's worth thinking about.
So on that point, I know a lot of people will join like a master swim group or something like that, so they can get their workouts in. And I'm just thinking that if someone's doing that kind of thing and going out there and doing all these hard workouts, and they're not being individually coached, and they have some bad habits. So now we're reinforcing some bad habits. So what Cindy was just saying about getting someone to look at your form and see what you're doing right or wrong. It could be that you're just getting all kinds of strength and fitness, but doing something that's not helping you with efficiency. So that's an important part of it, just to check in on that.
The other thing that's important this time of year, again, assuming that you're from where we're from in Canada, where we're having winter, is that it's likely that our first A race anyhow, is months away, right? It's likely 5, 6, 7, 8 more months away. It's very hard to get motivated right now to give our 100% for something that's so far away. So it's important to set some short-term goals. So that could look like a 5K or a 10K in January, February, March. even though it's winter and it might not be your personal best, it's still a different kind of challenge. So it's all how you think about it. It's important to have those short-term goals, just mentally, to get yourself 100% in. It's also helpful for us so that we see where your fitness is at. And it's helpful because it reminds you of what it's like to be in that race mindset, in that mental mindset. Keeping in mind that we just said we don't want you to be at peak fitness 12 months of the year. Again, this 5K, this 10K might not be your personal best. One, because you're not in your peak fitness. Two, because it might be slippery. There might be snow, right? But again, something to work towards. Might not be a PB goal, might be a different kind of goal, but important to get those races on the calendar. Moving further into the spring, another short-term goal, but a little bit longer than the January, February, would be think about, depending where your running's at, maybe a half marathon, maybe even a marathon in the spring. Something to help you get out and run those 20Ks, 25Ks, 30Ks if you're training for an endurance event through the winter in that weather that might be chilly, might be hard to get up in the morning and get out the door. There's some great races coming up in the spring that can help you plan that. If you're from here, Sandie and I actually organize a race. It's called the Georgina Spring Fling. It's in May. It's on May 6th, and it has a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, and a marathon. So you could take a look at that. You can look at enduranceeventproductions.com if you're interested in taking part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The one thing about running at this time of year, if we join a run group, then that really helps. I mean, we tend to be, I'm going to speak as triathletes, we tend to be a little bit solo runners, but joining a run group through the winter can really help you make that commitment to go and meet the people and get going and get out and do those miles. The only thing that I would caution people about with that, and also with getting on Zwift, for example, on the bikes, is not staying with what your program is. So if you're supposed to be going out and doing a long, slow distance run, and the people you're running with are either really fast or really slow, and then you're getting off your program, that's the only thing you need to be paying attention to. So finding people who are similarly have similar abilities, or maybe just a little bit more than you, so you have someone to pull you along and challenge you a bit, is a good thing.
Yeah. And just having that social interaction, it can be it can be a lonely sport too sometimes.
Yeah.
Most of us like spending time in our own heads. That's why we do it. But it can be nice and refreshing to have a bit of a social time while doing it as well.
Mm-hmm. The other thing too about wow, I lost my brain. the other thing about training early in the spring is to look for a training camp, and which is what we're going to talk about. We're also running a training camp in the very beginning of March, and training for that means that, if you don't have your plan for the year, at least you know that you're training to get away and do some volume. So it's you don't want to be the person who's showing up there and you've only done a couple runs and you've not been on the bike and you're just sort of going, okay, here's the kickstart to my season, because you probably won't enjoy it and you won't enjoy being left behind by the group. So that's a really good motivator to pick something like that. It's a week of getting away and focusing purely on training volume, but also learning from your coaches and learning from the other athletes, which is it's a huge value in that. If you've never done it, it's really worth thinking about. And so how do they find out about that? That's on our website?
Yeah, so we'll be taking people to Arizona March 1st to March 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'll be meeting people in Arizona, in Tucson. Anyone who hasn't been there before may have heard about Mount Lemmon. That's the big attraction that brings cyclists to Tucson. There's some other beautiful riding there, like lots of beautiful riding. And the best part is, for the most part, it's also beautiful weather. So, it's the desert. It doesn't rain. We're pretty much guaranteed a week of amazing training. We've got an outdoor pool reserved. So every morning except Mount Lemmon Day, we'll be meeting at an outdoor pool, 25 meters, sometimes 50 meters, sometimes. You turn your head to take a breath, you see the mountains in the distance. It's really, really beautiful. Then we'll head out on the bike. Sometimes we'll ride for a couple hours. Sometimes we'll ride, a lot of the day. And don't be intimidated by that, by the way. There'll always be options. If you don't feel like you want to ride as many kilometers as we might have planned, there's always going to be options for a bit of a later start or an earlier finish. Don't feel intimidated. You don't have to go a certain speed. We'll make sure that you're okay and that the camp works for you. And then we'll do some running. But for the most part, a lot of what we do in Arizona is cycle because we have the opportunity to do so. And at home, we're in our basements on our trainers.
Yeah.
If you would like to join us, again, send us an email, clperformancetraining@gmail.com, and we'll send you a link to get registered for that.
Yeah. Well, I know what I was going to talk about. Okay. This is a good time of year also to play around with your gear. So, for example, if you are getting into a new bike or your bike, if you're changing your distance, for example, if you've been riding really short distance races and you're thinking that you want to get into a long course race, it's a good time for a bike fit and to get used to it. And if you think you need a new saddle or you're adding technology, say power meter or something like that to your bike, it's a really great time to get used to that so that by the time you get to your bigger training blocks or getting outdoors, you've got that sorted out. The holidays are coming, Christmas lists and all the rest of it, and then the sales. So it's a good time to pick up new things like that. Same thing with, if you're changing your watch, you're changing your running shoes, any of those kinds of things. It's a good time to sort of work through those because they can really derail you if you haven't figured them out.
Mm-hmm. So we wanted to spend a couple of minutes also talking about how to plan your actual race season when that, we talked about doing an early season 5 and 10K, maybe an early season run, but what do we do after that? We find that we get some new athletes who have, a big race calendar and they want to have their best race at every race on that calendar. And we don't feel that that's the right way to approach a season. Instead, some athletes, if you have your 5 or 6 races through the season that you want to do, it's important to look at that and say, okay, what are my 2 most important races?
Mm-hmm.
What are the 2 that I really want to do my absolute best, that I want to give 100% to, that I want to, most importantly, plan my training around? If you go and you try to do all of those and make those all A races, then you don't really have time to train and get better. Even like taper and recover and get on to the next one in a way that will let you do that for the whole season. So take that list of races, say, okay, what are my 2, 1 early season, 1 late season that I want to be called my A races or the most important to me? Outside of that, some athletes may be happy with those 2. We would recommend to those athletes to actually pick 1 or 2 shorter events to do before that, just to practice racing, practice getting in the mindset, practice your nutrition at a high effort, practice your transitions if you're a multi-sport athlete, practice, getting your wetsuit on and off, swimming in your wetsuit, just having that race experience before you go to those A races. If you're somebody who has that big race calendar with a lot of events on it, some of those races are going to turn into training races. Some of them might have a long bike ride the day before or a long bike ride right after, or even another run later in the day. So some of those races will just become race practice rather than go out there and give your 100%. You may choose a shorter race and do it at an Ironman effort or do it at half Ironman effort to practice your nutrition while you're working at that race pace so that you don't also have to taper for it. You don't have to recover from it. You don't have to use some of those valuable weeks and some of that valuable time that you may have trying to prepare for that bigger event. So think about that when you're choosing which events you want to do this season and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Always think about 1A in the spring, 1A in the fall, or just 1A altogether. That's also okay. And plan in some of those other events around that as with the goal of getting you ready for those ones that you really want to perform at.
Mm-hmm. I think generally, if you're looking at doing, say, for example, 2 Ironmans in 1 year, which people do, spacing them out so that you've got at least 3 to 4 weeks in between is not optimal, but it's probably the closest that you would ever want to do that, unless you're insanely, if that's all you do is Ironmans, right?
Yeah. 4 weeks. It takes 4 weeks to recover for most age group athletes after an Ironman. So you definitely don't want to space them closer than that. But ideally, you space them so that, one might be in May and one might be in October, right? So you have a whole different phase of training in between.
Mm-hmm. So, and I think if you're thinking of, you're not really sure what you want to do this season, then it's a good thing to sit down with your coach and talk about it and just say, does this feel reasonable? And what, understanding what your limiters are. So do you need to work this year on your bike or on the run, or where are your weaknesses, so that you can work on those? I don't think it's not really reasonable to work on getting better across the board in each season. Would you agree with that, Cindy?
Yep, 100%. So yeah, you periodize a plan working on certain parts of the equation at different parts of the year, and then eventually put them all together so that you're ready for those A events.
Yeah. So planning your season with your coaches can be another approach that really helps. Take a look at what different races are out there and what you think you might want to be doing. If you want to try something completely new, like an ultra or something like that, especially with something like that, get talking with your coach and find out how to approach that. We also have a post on our website that we will repost again that talks about thinking about planning for each of the different distances and what it involves.
Yep. And by the way, when it comes to coaching, for some of you guys who don't know what that even is or how that even works for triathlon or multisport, that doesn't mean you have to join a group or a club and go to their practices. So a lot of multisport coaches, including what we do, it's all done online. So you can be, a busy person on your own schedule, do your own workouts on your own time. We just help you plan what those workouts should be. We take a look at things from your Garmin files, from your feedback, from your heart rate, your paces, your powers, and we help you out by making a plan that you can do on your own time. So just keep that in mind as well. It doesn't mean having to plan in other people's workouts into your busy schedule, because we do know that multi-sport athletes tend to be very busy people who have a lot of goals in a lot of different parts of their life, and family as well, family and careers to work around as well. So if you have any questions about that, if you're not really sure how that works but a little bit curious, again, send us an email, clperformancetraining.com. Check out our website, clperformancetraining.com, and definitely subscribe to this YouTube channel, because we're going to be giving you guys a lot of information that you'll be able to use as you go through your multi-sport journey.
Mm-hmm. And just so everyone knows, those training plans are very specific to each individual. So it's not a plan that's done for the entire year and you download it and there you go. This is what I want to do for my marathon or whatever it is. It responds to each week and what you do and how you're doing, and if you're having troubles with certain things or you're overtraining and that sort of thing. So it's really responsive. And that's really the big difference between a downloaded training plan, a general one. So we're listening is what we're saying.
All right, guys. Again, clperformancetraining.com. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, and we will have something to post for you guys in the next couple of weeks. Have a great day.